morning, Facebook. Welcome to Group Chat. My name is Chris Barnett. Remember, we're doing our starting lineup of Facebook Live shows with the KWM News family all week long. I know Sabrina's got a great show in store with you for you guys tomorrow. She's going to sit down with the Acting Chief of Police, Chief Steve Ignacio. That's tomorrow. This is today. I actually had another show planned for you guys, but we had to take it indoors because of the weather. And I know with the news that came out last night or yesterday about the National Weather Service tracking a system down around Koshrai, I believe. Waking up this morning, you know, heavy showers. A lot of people were kind of wondering, and you get this all the time. I mean, it rains for 5 minutes. People start wondering, oh, are we having a typhoon? Is there a storm that you guys are watching? And you know, coincidentally, you guys are actually watching a system. And I kind of wanted to start off with that. And then we could kind of work through a bunch of different weather stuff that I kind of had in my mind. So can you tell us a little bit about this system that you guys are watching?
Absolutely. So we are looking at this weak disturbance. It is passing to the southwest of Koshrai. And anybody who's been in the Marianas for a long time will definitely get a little bit alarmed when there's any type of storm in that part of Micronesia. There is a circulation. It is causing a lot of showers, gusty winds across Pohnpei. It is moving in a juke state now. And it is something that we're watching very closely for Guam and also the CNMI. The models do show a circulation slowly developing and then eventually passing just south or west of Guam sometime over the weekend around Sunday, give or take a day, and then moving off into the Philippine Sea.
Right. And so when we spoke before the show started, I asked you to kind of go into more detail. So over the next 2-3 days, what kind of conditions can we expect here in Guam?
Well, it's going to be windy. We've had a pretty strong trade wind pattern for the past several days, and the showers have actually moved in yesterday evening, overnight. And it's not dropping a lot of rainfall, but it stays pretty wet. There's ongoing showers that keep on passing over the islands. This is not related to the circulation in Micronesia, but this is just a standard trade wind pattern that we see from time to time this time of year. But we're going to stay pretty gusty for the next couple of days, probably 20 to 25 mile per hour northeast winds. A few more showers today, but then we dry out some for Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And then as that circulation comes closer, then we're going to see more moisture associated with the storm over the weekend.
Yeah, and so it's going to be a wet weekend, and I already know that I know one of the schools was going to have an activity on a Saturday, and that was an outdoor activity, and they went ahead and canceled that. So I'm kind of curious to see, you know, with this news coming out and looking at you know, a wet, soggy weekend, if we're going to see more cancellations.
It's possible. It's something I would definitely stress for people who are planning any type of outdoor activities. I know outdoor activities usually come with tarps and canopies. With the winds picking up this weekend, definitely keep that in mind. If you're going to go ahead with your outdoor plans, make sure those canopies are well anchored, very well secured. We don't want to hear of any injuries of people getting hit by stuff falling.
Yeah. I think you know, seas too. Can we talk about the conditions of the seas? I mean, pretty rough on
this weekend. Is definitely not a good weekend for any type of marine activities. We've got small craft advisories in effect right now for winds and seas of around 10 feet. So it's going to be very choppy just at that. We do have a high risk of rip currents along east-facing shores of the Marianas because of that trade wind swell. And this week we do expect to see seas and winds increasing starting around Friday. So those combined seas will be approaching 12, 13, 14 feet. And then also we're going to start seeing the hazardous surf developing. So that would be surf of at least 12 feet on east-facing reefs, and then possibly spreading to the north-facing reefs.
Oh, 12 footers!
12 footers. Not surfing conditions. Right. It's too windy, too choppy.
Let's talk about you know, being in here in the bunker, and when you make that determination that you see something blip on your radar and you pick up the phone and you call people and let them know. Because I know it's a judgment call a lot of times, and you guys, people have questioned, you know, you guys coming out and saying, you know, be careful, maybe a little early. So how do you make that determination?
Well, we're always looking at the computer models because the computer models do give us really good guidance, looking out 3, 4, 5 days out. We like to keep very close, good working relationships with the local civil defense offices here on Guam, the Homeland Security Emergency Management up in the CNMI, and then all the emergency offices and the weather service offices in Micronesia. When we see systems developing or the potential for development, we're going to be calling these offices, give them a bit of just a phone call discussion, and we want to make sure everybody is well prepared for this stuff. Nobody's caught off guard, and then as it starts becoming a little bit more concrete, more certain in the computer models, we look at a lot of different computer models. When they all start showing the same scenario, that increases our expectation of something is going to happen. And then we start putting that into the forecast, into our forecast discussion.
Right.
And then as day 5 becomes day 3, becomes day 2, our reliability on that forecast, our confidence increases. And through our social media, our Facebook page,
right.
Through our regular forecasts and discussions, we'll start hitting that information more clearly and more confidently.
I mean, as you start to see more extreme weather around the world, I mean, you know, snow in places that you wouldn't normally see it, and then, you know, a lot of snow and freezing temperatures in places that do normally get it. I think we kind of been lucky here on Guam. I mean, you know, knock on wood. It seems like the last few systems that kind of veered north. Does that have anything to do with like global warming, or why is that?
Well, it's hard to say. To look for that signature of global warming, you want to have a really good data set. So we need years to see where the typhoons have formed, where they have intensified, where they have moved off to. And there is some research that is kind of talking about tropical cyclones having their maximum intensity at a higher latitude. So that could be a sign of the climate change. But then there's also other factors that you've got to take into account, El Nino, La Nina. The ENSO pattern does play a big role in where these storms form, whether in the Philippine Sea, south of Guam, or in eastern Micronesia. And so as a scientist, you definitely want more data, more complete data. And nowadays, with so much satellite imagery at our disposal, we're getting really good details on where these storms form as disturbances.
Right.
And then we've got scatterometer data, which is a satellite-based...
That's actually a thing, a scatterometer.
A scatterometer is a polar orbiting satellite a couple hundred miles above the surface. It's looking down at the ocean surface, and based on the sea spray, based on the winds, it is giving us wind speed,
right.
Wind speed and direction. And
you
think about, this is the polar orbiter, the scatterometer data, so you can see the satellite is passing north to south at a slight angle based on its orbit. And where it is looking, where it sees data, you can see this color. These are wind barbs that are indicating wind direction and wind speed. So across, there's a circulation near Koshrai. The Marianas shows up right here in this patch of yellow and orange. That indicates pretty strong trade winds, northeast trade winds, and you can see the streamline that my coworker Mike analyzed overnight. Northeast winds, that shows winds reaching about 25 knots. So that is a definite evidence of strong trade winds, and that is exactly why we have a small craft advisory for the Marianas.
Going back to the storms that very north, I only I thought about this because over the last 3 years, I mean, you have so many amateur wannabe professional storm watchers on Guam, and you know, I get those calls when you guys start to monitor formation, and I'll have, you know, my friends down south, they're like, oh, you got to watch this one, it's forming by Chuck, you know, and traditionally the storms that form in that area come straight towards us, but then we're seeing that northward veer, and that's something that you guys say you need more data to analyze. Yep,
that's true, and but the older people in Guam, people who have been here for 10, 20 plus years, you've got that climatology built in, you've got that muscle memory. You've got the big storms of the 90s, early 2000s, so it's important. That's how you get to know the weather.
Right.
And until the past couple of years, we've not had many storms affect Guam, especially strong ones.
Right.
Guam and the Marianas, and so for the younger people, this is trial by experience, and so it's important to learn how these things work and where they usually go.
And that really worries me because we have a whole generation of younger people who haven't been through a serious storm. I mean, the last one we had, the power was out, was YouTube a couple days, and you know, people were just freaking out. So they don't have that that kind of like yardstick for measuring things like that. So when you go out and you tell them like how bad it could be, they kind of give you a weird look, like they don't know what you're talking about. So
that's right. It's before their experience,
right? And so, before social media. So with a lot of people, anything before social media didn't exist.
Yeah. So Chip Guard and some of the other forecasters here, we're visiting schools quite often. We have these public outreach events with the Civil Defense, and basically we want to hand out information on tropical cyclones, the climatology, how they usually move through the area, and educate the young people so they know how to prepare for these storms before they have that direct experience. And so it's a big educational campaign that we like to maintain with the Weather Office and the public.
Yeah, I mean, talking to my kids and, you know, my younger nephews and nieces, I mean, I sound like an old guy. I mean, the power's out 2 days, and I was like, oh, this is nothing, you know, try 6 months. They look at me like I got 3 eyes. And Chip, you know, someone a little more in my age demo here. You know, I tell them about 6 months with no power, no water. They just can't wrap their mind around it. And you know, going into the next big storm, because I mean, it really is a question of when, not if. I mean, how much is this going to change things in the aftermath?
Well, not too much. You know, our databases are really short time period. And you're talking about, you know, a very, very, very small snapshot of geological time. And I'm sure we've had the worst that we could see here on the island at some time in the past. But I've been here since, you know, 76, well, 74 to 78, and then 89 since 1989. And, you know, I've seen some strong storms, but there's stronger storms that can hit us. Karen was probably the strongest storm that hit us in modern times. And that was pretty close to, similar to U2 that hit Saipan and Tinian. But to think that that's the worst that we can see, nah, it's probably not the worst that we can see. You know, in 92.
Which is scary. I mean, you say something like that, and I don't want to gloss over it. I mean, how much worse could it get?
Well, we have 5 categories of storms, of typhoons. Category 1 is the weakest, Category 5 is the strongest. From the weak Category 5 to the strong Category 5 can probably do as much damage as all the other categories put together. So, as we double the wind speed, we quadruple the force of the wind, but when we look at the damages, it goes up by a factor of 9. So the stronger the winds get, the much larger damages can be done. So now, that said, I always tell people, no matter where I am, I would rather go through a typhoon or a hurricane on Guam than any other place in the world.
Why is that?
That's because we're fairly well built. We have a really good warning program. People are fairly savvy.
Pat yourself on the back.
No. I pat everybody on the back. You know, it's a 3-legged stool. One leg is us. We put out the forecast. The next leg is civil defense. They tell people what to do. They kind of get them prepared. But neither one of us have radio stations per se, so we depend on the media. You're the third leg.
Yeah.
And the media gets the word out to the people.
We're the third leg. I'm going to go with that.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
But keep in mind, any one of those legs.
It's already trending on Twitter. Third leg.
Any one of those legs falls, the whole thing collapses.
Right. Yeah.
So it's a team effort getting the word out there, and we depend on the media a lot. So. And we have a really good working relationship with the media here and the media in Saipan. The farther out you get into Micronesian Islands, the less the media has an influence. So we work more with governments there.
Right.
And they are the media, basically. You know, they have government radio stations. Palau's is different, but Chuk, Pohnpei, Kosarai, and the Marshall Islands, they basically use a national radio to get the information out to all of their islands.
Right.
And they're spread out quite a bit, you know. I was just down in Chuk, and we dedicated the new Weather Service office that we funded, and we had the 3rd ranking National Weather Service guy from Washington out, and our regional director from Honolulu out, and myself, and we were down there, and it was a great opportunity, you know, to have the ribbon cutting, the dedication, and to work with the people. I go down there every year, just about every year, and do a 2-day, 16-module workshop on just about everything you can think about that has to do with weather and ocean and tides and things like that. So,
you know, one thing I noticed, it's a very different, you know, going through storms and potential storms nowadays versus, you know, when I was a kid, which, you know, wasn't that long ago. there was a lot of operating in the dark, you know what I mean? No power. I mean, usually when we get these big storms like the Omars, the Uris, the Roys, power go out.
Yeah.
You're sitting there in the dark, radio stations die. Very different from today where you have the government mobilizing the Joint Information Center, you know what I mean? And this is a group that brings in people from different agencies. I think one of the bright spots of government, I mean, sometimes it's a little bit of overkill with the hourly updates, you know, especially during the long stretch. But I mean, for the government to be able to mobilize all these different